Hi there. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where you can ask your questions about American accent, American pronunciation, intonation, anything to help you improve your overall fluency and communication in American English. We've been talking a lot lately about words in our Word of the Day series, breaking them down, looking at the sounds. I do also like to sometimes look at some phrases to help you think about fluent speech and how we connect and link words, how we reduce sounds in fluent speech. So to start today, let's take a look at this phrase. And if I were to read this phrase word by word, it would sound like that is what we are going to do. Obviously, that sounds very choppy, not very natural, and that's not how people speak, right? We don't say that is what we are going to do. And none of you do that as well. But one of the things that doesn't always come smoothly and easily to people when they're speaking in their language that's not their first language is how to link and connect and how things change. If I do say the word that by itself, I might say it just like that with those sounds. But when I say that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do, it changes, right? So here's the first change in this phrase. Rather than saying that is, typically most native speakers are going to say it as that's. We pretty much always use contractions when it comes to these little words like is and will and would. And so practicing feeling comfortable saying that's rather than that is going to be helpful for you in sounding more like a native speaker. When I do say that is what we are going to do, it sounds a little bit, sorry, I have to get my pen ready. It sounds more like I'm stressing the word is, that is what we are going to do. Changes the meaning a little bit. It sounds like I'm contradicting you and saying there's a kind of a hidden no that is rather than that's what we're going to do. It's just the more standard way. Next contraction, same thing for we are. It becomes we're, and that's what we're. I shouldn't leave out the word what. So one thing I'll think about is when I'm saying that's what we're going to do, is that's what kind of runs together. So it's almost like it's almost like one word because it's not stressed and it's not important. It goes by pretty quickly. When I say the contraction we're, it sounds like we're with an ear diphthong, but I go even further rather than just saying that's what we're going to do. Often then that gets reduced one step further down to sound more like were. So it's correct to say we're, and it's good to practice on that, but you can also reduce it and it sounds a little bit more like the word were. So you'll hear that's what we're going to do. That's what we're. So words like ear or for that have the diphthongs with R sometimes get reduced just to an sound. So ear becomes from we're to were. That's what we're going to do. It's okay to say that's what we're going to do. But again, if I keep that we're, then it sounds stressed and it changes the meaning a little bit. That's what we're going to do sounds like I'm specifically focusing on we're going to do that, not you, versus just unstressed, neutral, everyday. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Then for going to do, there's a few different ways that we change and stress this. One that we pretty much always do is that our oo sound in to is going to become a schwa sound like ta. So I can say that's what we're going to do, to do. It's definitely a natural way of doing it. That's what we're going to do. Going to do kind of serves as the verb. So both going and do are a little bit stressed and important. To is not important, not stressed here. So it becomes ta. Also, when I'm linking going to do, sometimes because going is voiced, I will go one step further and I'll say more like, that's what we're going to do. So the The T of the T gets voiced, turns it a little to more of a flap because it's linked to the NG, which is voiced, going to do. So a couple different ways. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So you heard how I gave you the next step, that going to do sometimes becomes gonna. So rather than going to or going to, I lose that T and D entirely, and I just go right into the going turns to gonna. For gonna, I'm gonna say, you can use this. Americans do. It sounds fine. It's very native-like, but it is a little bit more casual. And so I would say, not casual, but casual. I would say that using gonna, you reserve that more for speaking with colleagues, friends. Maybe in some professional settings, it's fine for natural speech. In a presentation or a job interview, practicing to use something more like going to or going to is going to sound more professional. See, I just naturally said gonna, so I use gonna a lot. It's okay. It's not something that you have to avoid, but there's sort of different levels of how relaxed your speech can be. Going to and going to are used. It has nothing to do with being casual. It's just about the fluency and the connection. So even in just a simple phrase, that is what we are going to do. You can see there's many, many changes that we make, a lot of linking, a lot of reduction, a lot of changed sounds. So you don't have to necessarily take everything that you're saying and break it down and change everything, but learning about some of these changes like to ta, the linking and the reduced sounds, becoming aware that that's why sometimes native speech sounds the way it does, and that might be missing in some of your fluent speech, can be really helpful in understanding and using English that other people understand as well. It's helpful for having an American accent, but it's more than just that. It doesn't really matter if you have a perfect American accent or not. You will just want to be well understood by people who speak that way and understand them well and be clear. So it's useful to know about those things, whether or not you implement them in your own speech. Okay, so that was the beginning. Now I'll take a look at the questions that have come in. Thank you for listening, and do feel free to ask your questions at any time. They can be about that topic or pronunciation, anything that comes up for you. So let's take a look. Hi, nice to see everyone here. Welcome. We have a question about a couple words, the word captain, and then let's start with your first word. So the word captain, has first syllable stress. That first letter A says the A vowel, just like my cap or my cat. It's the black cat vowel. And then captain, we either do a syllabic N with a T sound, captain. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think about if there's another T that we might do. I would say that basically you don't do this vowel at all. You have, if any vowel, there's a little I or a schwa, but you go right to the N sound. So the N functions as its own syllable, captain. And then your other question was, let's split. What do you do when you have two S's together, as in it's still or let's split? So when I have let's split, I can link those and just do one S, let's split. It's still happening. Because the listener's brain is going to fill in. If I said it still with a break and no S on its, it would sound incorrect. But if I just do one S, it's still happening. It naturally, the brain fills in that it's the words it's and still. And so even though I'm not saying two separate S's there, we can naturally hear that. Let's split, it's still, let's sample it, etc. Yeah, good. So often when the beginning and ending sounds in a phrase have the same sound, we just make one sound so that the consonants link. I do have some videos specifically about linking consonants together, working on different end sounds and beginning sounds. You can find that on my Real Talk playlist and my linking and reduce sounds playlist. Okay, we have a question about a request to pronounce they'll. So just there, I didn't pronounce it very naturally. They'll. I exaggerated a little bit. So it does, if I'm saying it slowly, I will have an A sound for the they'll, and because I'm moving from the A to a schwa before that dark L, you'll. There's a little bit of a glide in there. So it sounds a little bit like they'll, not two glides, not two sounds, but I'm putting the Y there twice so that you can see that it connects. But if I'm talking in connected speech, they'll do it. The they'll becomes a little more almost like they'll do it. So I hear kind of a red tent vowel there. I talk about this. I have a video I did recently that talks about heel, she'll, wheel, and how they become more hill, shill, will. So that's a similar reduction as we had with we're becoming more like were. They'll becomes a little more like they'll be busy. So yeah, you can do both. They'll be busy. It sounds just fine. It's correct. You'll hear sometimes that more of a reduction where the A-ll becomes more just L, they'll. Good question. Thank you. All right, we have another question. How to distinguish between mom and ma'am? So mom, ah, has the ah vowel. It's open and unrounded, mom, and ma'am has the ah vowel like black cat. So it's more forward. And what I would say is having other words that have the ah versus the ah vowel will help you distinguish these two. For example, you could try, can I have that? Can I have that, ma'am? Keeping that ah the same versus not my mom, or not a mom, not and mom. Or if the O gives you trouble, thinking about father and mom, ah, they both have this ah, same ah vowel. Yeah. Similar words like that, I like pairing another word that has the same vowel so that you can hear it differently. If I'm saying mom, ma'am, it might be harder to hear, but not and have, I don't have too much trouble hearing the difference between those two vowel sounds. Okay, great. No, so they're not homophones, Javier. Thanks for that question. Okay, other questions from those of you who are here live? Yes, I see we have a question for the word trivialize. So trivialize has first syllable stress. The first letter I is the I sound, like in did or trip. So triv. Then the next letter I is an E sound, trivi. This letter A is a schwa, trivia, lies. The last letter I, the E makes it say its name. So it sounds like the diphthong I, and then we have a Z. So looking at that, how I would respell that, I would probably write it with actually capital letters first. So triv, let me erase that so it doesn't look confusing. Length on my first syllable, triv, E, lies, trivialize. The via, the ia syllables go by really quickly, almost get reduced, trivialize, but you still need both of them there just fast. And then your other word was arbitrary. I do believe I have a word of the day video for arbitrary and arbitrarily. So if I do, I'll put a link in the comments after class for you so you can check that out in more detail. But let's look at it now. So sorry, I'm misspelling it. Arbitrary. Okay, so a little bit tough because we have so many R's here. We have first syllable stress. So the arb syllable is stressed. Letters AR in the beginning say R, like the R vowel. Arb. And arb can be in the first syllable, or you can start with arb with b in the second syllable. Let's write it that way to make it a little easier. Arb. This is the lax if vowel, like in bit. Arbitrary, trary. We do say this TR as a true T. Now this letter AR says the air diphthong, arbitrary. And then lastly, letter Y says the E sound. So first syllable stress. And I would work from the air syllable. So trying just saying air, airy, rary, trary, arbitrary. Building from this air in the back, that's probably the most challenging part. It's also like the word rare. I did just recently cover the word rare and rarely as well. All of those different patterns are going to help you to sequence the syllables in this word and say arbitrary more easily. Thank you for that request. That's a good one. All right, we have a request for the word month and months. And someone was just asking me in a comment about the word months and sixths, whether or not that TH and S kind of all come out as one sound. And I do two separate things. So when I say months or sixths, I do have to have my tongue between my teeth for the TH and then pull it back for the S sound. But what you'll hear is th, th. It does kind of sound like all one sound. It's just that if I do th, you can hear how just a TH has that continuing sound with the tongue between the teeth, and th ends up sounding like an S at the end. It just has the th part before it. So that's how to get that kind of tricky THS part. Month and months. I would just build, first of all, know that this letter O is a schwa. So it looks like this. We have an N in here too, month. And so I would kind of build from mun, then add your TH, month, then finally add your S, months. And if just the THS part is challenging, just work on starting with your tongue between your teeth and pulling it back. Not super easy because the TH is hard for a lot of people. Build up from month in order to be able to say months, or things like sixths. That's really hard for native speakers to say as well. It takes a lot of coordination for the tongue. Okay. We have a request for mountain and sentence. So I just said mountain with a T. Most of the time, native speakers are going to say that like mountain, mountain, where they're going to make a stop T. So that makes that N short, and then just another N. So I have an ow diphthong. Ow, mow, mount, stop the tongue. Don't let that T out. Another short N. Mountain, mountain. And same for sentence, sentence. I tend to do sentence. So the T is there in that the N stops short, but I don't say sentence. You can, sentence is okay, but native speakers will say sentence. And I do have not a mountain, I do have a video for both mountain and sentence so that you can hear me break down that mountain, sentence, to hear the way native speakers say them. That's an often requested, both are often requested words because you can hear how I just did both, right? Sometimes I said mountain with a T, sentence with a T, but mostly in connected speech, if I'm talking about a mountain or talking about speaking in a sentence, I'm not going to put those T's in there. So you hear a difference between the way it's spelled and the way someone would say it if they said it by itself. So if you ask a native speaker, how do you say mountain? They would, in a sentence, they would say, oh, I'm going to the mountain. But if you ask them, they'll say mountain. They'll probably put the T in when they're just saying the single word. So that can be confusing. Also, when you look words like that up in the dictionary, you'll see maybe the T in the pronunciation. They won't tell you about how people actually pronounce it with a stopped T and just those syllabic end sounds. Great. Okay. Another question for the word whereas. So whereas is kind of weird because the as part is stressed. It has the black cat vowel and the letter S says Z. So that's just like the word as I was talking, as I was saying. Whereas he, the where is the same as the word where as well, with the air diphthong, but you want to be short long. So whereas. Yeah, so thinking about that as an air, whereas. Something's wrong with my handwriting today. Not so tidy. Sorry about that. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up for today. We have a request for overtly and covertly. So I just stressed that wrong because I was making a difference between overt and covert. But we actually stress not on the O, but the vert. So overtly. Here's another example of our stop T. Not overtly, but overtly. I move up to mark that T, but I release into the L. Overtly. So my O in overtly is a true O, but it's unstressed, so you have to be a little bit reduced on it. So rather than overtly, you're going to maybe just do no diphthong there or do something else to make it fast and reduced. Letters ER do just say the stressed sound in this word. And then letter Y says the E, overtly. I was just trying it out with a schwa, like overtly, but you don't go all that far in reducing it. Just don't hold your O too long. And then when you have covertly, then you have a little more length for your O probably, covertly, but still stress on the vert syllable. Overtly, covertly. Yeah, he is overtly rude. She was covertly stealing from the company. So yeah, watch out that it's not over with first syllable stress or cover, but even though those words are within overt and covert. Great. So knowing what syllables are stressed, part of that is just having paid a lot of attention to it. In your native language, you probably can figure it out if you slow down and start thinking about it. It's not something that you just know off the top of your head without sort of examining that more. But what I'll suggest is that you actually can look up in the dictionary. Like in the dictionary for whereas, you're going to see a little line before the stressed syllable. So they mark it in the dictionary. Different dictionaries do it differently, but look for that line. Usually it's before the syllable that gets the stress. And also I have a number of videos that break down common everyday words and show you where the stress is. Once you start listening for it in your native language or in English, you'll be able to hear it more clearly. I also suggest I have some videos looking at words like record and record, where it's one word, but has two pronunciations, depending on whether it's a noun or a verb. And those are stressed on different syllables. And start kind of waking up your brain to notice that more. That can be really helpful. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. This was a great class with wonderful questions, and I really enjoy hearing what you have to say. I'll be back again on Sunday. We'll have our members class on Sunday morning. And this week we're opening that up to everyone, so you can attend again another live class if you're interested. See what we do for our channel members each week. They can ask their questions at any time throughout the week, and I cover them for them on Sundays, and they don't necessarily have to be there live for that class. They can watch the replay and get their requests covered right away. So channel membership is a way of supporting the channel. You can click the join button and check that out if that's something that is interesting to you. If it's not, don't worry, you can still attend this coming Sunday. It'll be free and open to everyone. We also have on speechmodification.com, some free and low-cost online courses for all of the sounds of English, for American accent, for things like we did at the beginning of class today with linking and reduced sounds, where you can get some help for different levels of fluency and pronunciation, American accent, and English. Several of those courses are free, and then the rest are all $2 or less so that they can be accessible for you as a good resource as you're learning and working. Thanks so much, everyone. It was nice to see you all here today, and I look forward to seeing you again in our upcoming Word of the Day classes, in Sunday's members class, and next Friday in our live question and answer class. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Thanks for a great class.